So today we got the Slim Shady LP, Eminem's first album on deck. We're going to break that down, talk about what it meant for hip hop, and give it a real review here today.
What up, what up, what up? It's your boy, Shoutout, LOXD Block.
I let my tape rock.
Yo, what's up? It's your girl Kaya, baby.
It's your boy Murder Move the Easy Man.
Hey, yo, Diesel, what's good?
Yo, this is SP the Ghost, LOXD Block, and I want to give a big, huge shout out to Diesel.
I just want to shout out real quick my guy Diesel.
I want to shout out DJ Diesel, man.
For having the realest hip hop reviews on YouTube.
Because they got the realest reviews on a lot of situations.
So if you trash, we're going to tell you it's trash. If it's fire, then it's fire. If it's Diesel, then it's Diesel, and Diesel going to let you know.
Keep doing what you're doing. I salute D Block. Yeah. I let my tape rock to my tape pop. Now I'm in the limelight, cause I was all a dream. Never thought that hip hop. Take it down.
Now for me, this album was groundbreaking, brung a lot of shock value, genius, amazing writing, dope production, and almost most important, controversial. And I say most important because to understand why it was so groundbreaking, or to understand why the writing was so amazing, you have to understand why it was so controversial. Now, this was released in 1999. You have to understand, hip hop was still not being accepted by all the major platforms. Everybody was not accepting it. Radio stations wouldn't even play certain songs depending on the content. If you go back just a year before this came out, Big Pun, still not a player. Look how hard it is to find the dirty version of that song. I don't care where it's being played at. If you go to the explicit album, the album where every song on the album have curse words in it, except the song they put on the radio. No curse words because it was sexually explicit. They even took out words that wasn't curse words that just insinuated the thing. Notorious B.I.G., Biggie Smalls, Give Me the Loot on his album, man, they took out stuff that wasn't even curse words just so you could not understand exactly what he was trying to say. That's how much they controlled hip hop at that point. It wasn't that long before Eminem put this album out that Dr. Dre was going through the boycotts, the bans, the charges, the negative press. He did it with NWA, he did it with Death Row, and he did it with Snoop, you know, where they was boycotting, breaking the albums. And that's why I say it was so groundbreaking, because he went completely in a different direction than where pop culture was trying to direct hip hop, and it worked. He fought through all the negative press. The FCC won't let me be, you know what I mean? He went through all of the negative press, all the boycotts, all the bans, all the interviews trying to understand his genius writing. He went through all of that, and it became the biggest single disc album of all time, sold the most records, and it played a big part in the acceptance of freedom of speech in hip hop today, because at that point we were still fighting through a lot just to be accepted in certain venues and radio stations. The shock value was so strong on this album, it had everybody paying attention. And if you wasn't paying attention, you was aware that there was this little skinny white boy that put an album out that everybody is talking about. Now, part of that was because he was white. They was rooting for him. They ain't never seen nothing like it. They never seen a white boy that could keep a beat the way he did, rap the way he did, and he brought so much shock value. They was rooting for him. And there's nothing wrong for that, because we do the same thing. We did not start watching tennis until Serena and Venus was playing, and we don't watch no other matches. We only watch theirs, and we root for them just because. We never paid attention to golf until Tiger was on there, and we still don't watch golf, but we be rooting for Tiger just watching the sports shows. You get what I'm saying? So it was nothing wrong with that, but a huge part of it was because of the shock value of the content of the songs he was putting out. And the shock value started from the first song, where he goes in on the first song, he got a disclaimer saying this is not for kids, XYZ. I don't know if he had to do that or it was just genius, but the shock value started because when you heard that intro, you like, yo, what is getting ready to happen here? We done heard NWA, Biggie, Tupac, we done heard everything. We done heard Death Row songs, we done heard all of this, and no disclaimers on it before the album come on. And this came on. So it started there, and then he opened the album with like the first line on the album is, "Hi kids, do you like violence? Do you want to see me stick 9-inch nails through each one of my eyelids?" Not only was he making songs that the kids was being catered to, he was talking directly to the children in this song, and he was talking crazy. Guilty Conscience, he on there talking about R word and a 15-year-old. Now he talking about from a perspective, but yo, what? You get what I'm saying? Shock value. Wasn't the first to do it. Shout out to DMX. But shock value was there. 97 Bonnie and Clyde. Dope song, but shock value. He's talking about offing his baby's mother and using his 2-year-old daughter as an accomplice. Like, yo, the song Role Model, he starts it off with, "I'm going to attempt to drown myself. Don't you want to try this at home and be just like me?"
I let my tape rock.
Now, as far as the writing and the storytelling that is throughout this album, it is so amazing. When I listen to some of these songs, I can visually see it. You know what I mean? I can see the story that Eminem is painting. On top of that, yo, he should be mentioned with the greats in storytelling. I don't ever hear Eminem mentioned, and we could think of other songs like Stan on other albums, but just staying here on his opening album, the storytelling throughout this album is insane. And you hear people talk about Biggie, Tupac, Slick Rick, Jay-Z as far as storytelling, but Eminem gotta be mentioned in there. Let's go back to Guilty Conscience with Dr. Dre. The 3 stories that's in that song and the way he wrote it, with him and Dre going back and forth with the good meets bad, it just was crazy, man. That writing is something that you never heard before. Top tier writing. You go to 97 Bonnie and Clyde, where he telling the story that I said with his baby mother and his daughter. That story is another one of those ones where you can see it. Not only can you see it, I'm in there like gaga Google gaga. Every time that line come on, I'm saying it with him. Yo, the writing is just insane. My Fault, the story where he talk about the trauma of a woman from him giving her mushrooms, that could go back to shock value, but the story, I'm with it. I followed them everywhere. I gotta mention Bad Meets Evil with Royce the 5'9". Yo, I ain't gotta mention that as far as to understand how great the writing is and the bars on there. Just Don't Give a Fuck. Crazy. He say on there, "I'll dish your magazine and still won't get a weak review." I thought that line was fire. Then when I hear it now, it's still fire. If I had, he started this song off with a poem. He wasn't rapping. It wasn't necessarily rhyming. It wasn't necessarily on beat. He started the song off with a dope poem and transitioned into his verse where he jumped back onto it was crazy, yo. That is fire, yo. You have to put that up there with some of the genius writing. And then for me being a black guy living in the inner city, this introduced me to white culture. It took me to the trailer park. The only other time I've been to the trailer park was watching Married with Children, the Al Bundy show. This album took me to the trailer park. It introduced me. I didn't know nothing about mushrooms or killing your baby. We didn't do that to our baby mothers. You know what I mean? There's a lot of songs out here where we dogging our baby mothers out, but we ain't never off them. You're not with our kids. You know what I'm saying? But also, on this album, there is stuff on here that I could relate to, and he telling his story. But when you look at If I Had, I felt him. If I had $1 million, we all felt that way. Life wouldn't be this way if we had it. You know what I mean? Rock bottom. We all been rock bottom. We all done hit rock bottom before. I could relate to that. Yo, you had to give, this goes all wrapped into the genius writing. It goes right to the shock value. He doing poems. It was just so much shock value. We ain't seen nothing like it, especially from a white boy. Did it with no features besides Dr. Dre and Royce the 5'9". Did it with no features besides Dr. Dre and Royce the 5'9", and we got to give him credit for that because he could have. Dr. Dre, could have got features on just off credit or favors alone for Eminem. He didn't do that. Royce was not a known name at the time. He was giving Royce a shot by being on there. Royce wasn't up there. So with that, that's crazy. And yo, Dr. Dre only produced 3 songs on here. You talking My Name Is, Guilty Conscience, and Role Model. I always assumed that he produced majority of the album, if not everything. No, the Bass Brothers, a production company from Detroit. He stayed home team with that. That's crazy. And they don't even do no hip hop. That's the only hip hop they done. I was researching them. I don't understand. Maybe they just made so much money off this album, they didn't need to do more. But yet, yo, that's it. Just Dr. Dre and those 3. And then you got the Bass Brothers, yo. He could have reached out to other producers. He could have got the Timberlands like everybody was doing during that year, but he didn't. That's crazy. Now, the only thing I believe now in the Me Too era and everything, he may have lost some replay value due to some of the content where he R-word and almost, I can't tell you how many times in this album he is R-wording somebody. It's insane. And they usually under 18. It's insane. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's insane. But yo, to sum it all up, this album is incredible. It was something amazing for him to present to the mainstream hip hop fans. We accepted it. He transitioned. He brought pop culture over to hip hop, which that's why a lot of people are able to sell so many streams and albums since then, because he introduced people to hip hop who wasn't listening to hip hop. He introduced some of the inner city culture to his white culture, took us to the trailer park with him. It was so much, and not only that, he forced America to allow hip hop to be what it is. Let us say what we want to say, and let us do the art that we want to do, yo. Now, it was other artists that was fighting with him in that battle, but Eminem don't get mentioned for that, and I feel like he might have got it targeted more than anybody because they wanted more from him because he was white. It was crazy. So this album, for me, 1 out of 10, I'm gonna give it a 9.5. I already knew that coming in here. I ain't gonna lie, it's a 9.5 for me. I'm stingy with the 10s. If you give it a 10, I would never argue that. That's not a 10 for me. It's missing something there for it to be a 10, but I'm going with a good 9.5. Not mad at that. And if you take it below anything, I wouldn't be mad at you, because I understand that a lot of people lost on this album because of relatability based on that culture that we just couldn't relate to. I can appreciate the writing. I can appreciate the art behind it. I can appreciate the movie that he was telling in this album. Salute. Good 9.5. With all that, man, I'm your boy Diesel, man.